What if you put all of the hours you usually spend on your phone into creating something? How much of a more satisfying life would that be? In this video, I want to talk about how to achieve just that, how to create more and how to consume less to live a more balanced and happy life. So let's dive into it. Today, I want to try something totally different. I want to do a one-taker, leave every mistake in, or at least edit as few things out of it as possible. Maybe I'll make it all the way through. We'll see. Make sure to check that out. So I made some notes. I want to dive into this topic not totally unprepared, but this time I haven't written out a whole script. So bear with me if I'm stumbling over my words. I hope that's okay. This is more of a podcasty type of episode. So let's try this. Let's start with how overconsumption affects and ultimately kills your creativity, in my opinion. You see, when I mean consumption, in this video, I mainly want to talk about digital consumption, social media, video games, TV shows, all that kind of stuff. With a focus on social media, because I think social media could potentially be the biggest enemy of creativity in our day and age. Even though we are sharing so many creative things on social media, but we'll get into that. The thing about social media is that it's incredibly addictive and time consuming. It's taking away so much of our energy and focus that we are essentially losing the potential to even create, because we already don't have so much time in our lives, right? And then we are spending the majority of our free time scrolling through a phone. Also kind of clogging our creative tubes this way, because we are constantly bombarded with entertainment and news and all of this information, so much so that we don't even have the time and the space to create something. It's also distracting us from our natural urge to create, because I really believe that we human beings usually are pretty creative beings, and we want to build, we want to write, we want to make music. But when we are constantly consuming, we kind of lose interest in that, because consumption is more easy. Scrolling is more easy than just creating something, because creating ultimately, and we'll come to that later, creating is hard at times. Consuming is easy. And it makes us kind of lazy, right? Because we spend so much time just laid back, scrolling, getting kind of rewarded for essentially doing nothing more than moving our thumb, which is kind of bad. And we're kind of overwhelming our minds with all of this information as well. How can you expect your mind to create something when it's constantly bombarded and overwhelmed by all of this input? Your mind needs space to create. You might have noticed that when you went on a walk, for example, or on vacation where you don't have access to certain kinds of entertainment, all of a sudden new things pop up into your head. Some people experience this under the shower, even, because these are times where we are actually not having too much input, right? All of a sudden something pops into our head and we don't know where it came from, but probably somewhere out of the creative space in our mind. So what I want to say is, in order to create more, you want to consume less. And I think that is the most difficult thing, especially for the younger generations in our lives right now, where we have kind of been growing up this way, just growing up with a smartphone and social media, video games, TV shows, all of that, without even having a chance to just be bored and use that as a fuel to be creative in a sense. So to consume less, well, how do you do that? It's not too easy, especially again, if you are kind of addicted to digital consumption, like many people are in our day and age. Again, that probably speaks to the younger generations more than the elder ones. And I think it will be an increasingly big problem over the next few years. But when you want to stop that, you essentially have to reduce the time you spend on a screen. Reduce the time you spend on social media. Ideally, leave social media entirely, because there's so many bad things that come from it, right? There's so much information overflow, and it's drawing us in so much into a world that's not real, which is getting even worse with AI right now, that we don't even have a chance to be original and create something new. So how do you really make that happen? I mean, I've tried it many times. I've tried to leave social media or reduce my screen time, only to find myself back at it a few weeks later, because I kind of convinced myself that I would be able to manage it. Right now, I'm back in a mode where I just deleted my Instagram account. I don't have any social media apps whatsoever anymore, and I plan to stick to that as long as possible, just because I know that it isn't good for me and it is distracting me from achieving and creating and being more of myself, really. It's a big time stealer as well. And yeah, the one thing I do to remind myself of that is to really think about all the bad things that came from it, like all the hours I wasted basically just scrolling, on how bad I felt many times afterwards or during scrolling, and thinking about all the stuff I could have created basically in the same time. Just think about, what if, again, as I said in the beginning, what if you spend all of these hours on a big project to create something new? How more satisfied, how more rich could you be in your life, right? So remind yourself of that regularly and show it to yourself, to prevent yourself to get drawn back into social media and this digital fake world. I actually have made a short video about how I reduced my screen time recently. You'll find it in the show notes. This is not a show, but in the video notes down here. Maybe you're interested in that, but essentially it comes down to switching off your phone as much as possible, leaving social media, and doing everything to prevent yourself from falling back into this addictive habit. Now, once you've done that, you have the time and the energy and the focus to create. And by the way, this could take some time, right? It could, when you When you're so used to scrolling all day, it could take a couple of weeks of being sober, quote unquote sober, from social media until your mind is ready to create again. Because in the beginning you'll suffer. You're so used to that you'll find all of the excuses to go back and to scroll. This is a real thing. I certainly experienced that in the past. But also you'll get bored more often. And then you'll come up with new ways of entertaining yourself. And if you don't have the option to consume, many times you'll find different things. And all of a sudden, things like gardening, for example, that's the thing for me, becomes more interesting again, right? Still, creating more can be pretty difficult because creating isn't easy. It takes some discipline. It takes some effort many times. Unless you are in total flow state, which can happen, but you cannot rely on that, right? So how to make sure that you create regularly and that you use the time you now want through not scrolling anymore. The first thing probably would be finding something that you really enjoy. This is a typical thing. If you want to create, you should create something you really enjoy to do. But still, this alone won't be enough many times because you can enjoy writing as much as you want. It will be difficult at times, and then you're stuck and you won't want to do it anymore. But it's a good thing that it's fun. And if you're not sure what to create in your life, whether you want to build a business, whether you want to be an artist, whether you want to do YouTube videos like this one, just try different things. Try different things until you find something that's fun and fulfilling for you. And then create projects. I think this is a pretty helpful thing. Like in photography, for example, I like to do photography projects where I just focus on one certain aspect of photography, like let's say black and white photography. I do that for a month, or just photographing trees. I did that recently, or flowers, or just macro photography. Focus on one thing and try to set a goal for that, because with projects you kind of have a direction to follow, which is pretty helpful, I think, in my opinion. And then make it a priority. Creating, again, can be really hard. And if you don't prioritize it, and if you don't set a certain time to it every day or week at least, you'll forget about it or you'll put it aside because, again, if it's difficult, if it's not too easy, if you have some fear around it, for example, which is pretty common around creatives, then you certainly won't do it. So make it a priority. Say that this is important to you and follow through and create a system around it. Because if you have a system like a routine, a habit, let's say you want to write a book, you sit down every single evening from 9 to 10 p.m. to write. That's supporting your creative habit. And make sure that you do create more. And then you could do it with a friend. This is also pretty helpful, I think. When you want to create more, do it with a friend. I know that's not possible for every creative endeavor, but especially when you're doing like a business thing or a collaborative piece of art, that can be really motivating and helpful because you can hold each other accountable. You can help each other with your projects. It's more fun to do it with a friend, right? Yeah. It will change your life. It will change your life a lot, especially when you're used to scrolling and consuming so much, as I am really, and a lot of the people of my generation and the younger generations are. Because life suddenly looks totally different. It's a totally different perspective. Creating is giving, while consuming is kind of taking, right? Creativity is expressing yourself and being more of yourself, becoming more of yourself, which is really transformative in my experience. You'll be more happy. You'll probably have better relationships just because creating and giving is your new mode of being. And yeah, I think it's one of the best ways to improve your life, to focus on creating instead of taking and consuming. And you feel like your days become longer again. You have more time, really, to do the stuff you want to do. And I understand that you will not be able to, if you're scrolling, like some people this day and age, they are scrolling like 6 hours a day. You don't have to create for 6 hours a day right now. I think this is probably not possible in many ways, because it's when you're doing a job and then you're expecting yourself to put all the time you put into consumption before into creating, you'll be overwhelmed by that. Don't expect too much of yourself that way. But again, it can be pretty helpful to focus on that. Now, you see, I'm kind of talking too much right now. I think this is all I have to say on this topic. I think it's enough for this moment. Feel free to share your thoughts on this below, in the video below. Come on. I said I didn't want to edit this out, so I leave it in. Share your thoughts on this in the comment section below. And if you're interested in more thoughts on creativity and productivity, subscribe. And I hope to see you very soon. Bye-bye.